and in this is centered around you specifically. There has people been asking exactly. You said you were a constitutional judge, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Would you be willing to explain that to me so then I can explain that to them so they can understand exactly so I don't get it confused myself. I do believe I know what it means, but I just want to make sure that they understand it so that they're not, how would I say it, twisting things on their own, because that's what some people like to do. You know what I mean? If they don't have an understanding of something, they create their own meanings.
That's right. It's frustrating because a lot of disinformation is out there. In order to understand the original foundation
Uh-huh.
of that was set up by our creators of this country, they realized that the government needs regulation, and so they created what is called the fourth branch of government,
Hmm.
and that is the grand jury.
Right.
Now, even the Supreme Court, which is under the authority and control and ownership of the bar,
British
the Lawyers Guild.
British Accreditation Registry. Yes.
That's right. See, all of the everything we know as the judicial system is a judicial system of the sea, not of the land.
Right.
And they brought in, and it is a for-profit. Every court is a corporation, and it has a TIN number, and it has a DUN number.
Right.
It's all for-profit. It is a monopoly owned, operated, and controlled by the Lawyers Guild or the American Bar Association or subsidiary of the British Accreditation Registry.
Right.
And so what we think is the true judicial system is a fake. We have just been through propaganda and disinformation and brainwashing. We have come to think that as legitimate. It is not legitimate. The way that is set up is the court has all the power, the people have no power.
Well, it's what it's basically become. It's like a administrative law setting where the corporation makes the laws, and of course the person has been converted into a corporation or a straw man, if you will, and it seems that the people that aren't really people at all, the straw men they created, have their very own TIN number. So now you have a corporation leveling charges against another corporation that you happen to be a surety for, because there's no way that you can pay off those charges with fiat currency because it's worthless, right?
That's right. You are 100% correct. Now, the way it was original. Now, let's stay with that for just a second before I move on.
Okay.
The grand juries. See, when you go into a court, you are going onto a ship, essentially.
Yes.
The judge is the captain of the ship. He has absolute total control.
Mm-hmm.
That is why if you say, I'm a sovereign, he says, you're in contempt of my ship.
Mm-hmm.
You're in contempt of my jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
Sovereignty has no place under sea jurisdiction.
Mm-hmm.
The same thing if you bring up, oh, well, I want my constitutional rights. Well, the Constitution does not exist in admiralty law.
Mm-hmm.
It's statutory. They make their own law. And that's why people get ripped up one side and down the other, and they are thrown into jail for just trying to bring in the Constitution, because they keep their jurisdiction in admiralty, or should I say statutory,
Mm-hmm.
which is the law of the sea, not the law of the land. Now, constitutional law, what's called continental. Continental means land.
Right.
Continental
Mm-hmm.
constitutional law. Now, that is totally separate. Oops, I forgot one thing. In their courts, they do have a grand jury, but the grand jury is owned, operated, and controlled by the attorneys and the judges.
Right.
They do not. They're not told about they're not told about jury nullification. They're not told that they can challenge or take on anything that they want. They're not told. They are totally controlled by the Lawyers Guild. They are not an independent group. They are a controlled group. Now, in the land jurisdiction is set up the total opposite. It basically puts the people with the absolute and total control. And people don't understand what that means. It doesn't mean that you go out and do whatever you want and hurt somebody. It means you have the political and jurisdictional control over the system.
Right.
System does not control you. You control the system. And so how it's set up is that the people are on top, and then you have, and that would be the common law grand jury. Then below that would be a common law constitutional continental judge. Below that would be your local administrators and politicians. Below that would be the state. Below that would be federal. So the federal is on the bottom. They have the least amount of control and power, whereas on the top, the people are. And that is what was originally set up by our forefathers.
Right.
Now, to get into the question about the judge in the statutory system he walks on water. He is the captain. He makes decisions. He sits there, excuse me.
No problem.
In judgment of you. Excuse me. Mm-hmm. And in the constitutional judge is nothing more than basically a referee.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Now you watched the game on Sunday, I assume most people did.
And I've used the same argument or the same example you're going to use. You have two teams, and you have the referees between the game, and it's kind of almost like a civil setting, or back in the old court system where you guys battled it out, and he would say, "Hey, you're out of line. You're out of line. Okay, keep it clean." Kind of like a fight almost, but I know the example you're going to use. Go ahead.
Okay, you're way ahead of me. I'm appreciative of your knowledge.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, you are 100% right. That is how it was before 1861. Mm-hmm. Yep. The bar did not exist before then. The lawyers did not have control. Well, the bar did exist, but the lawyers did not have control of the judicial system before then. Mm-hmm. They only took control after the Civil War.
Right.
And the Civil War, in spite of popular disinformation, was not about slavery. It was about sovereignty.
Right.
State sovereignty. That's what the war was about.
All you have to do is look at some of the things that Abraham Lincoln said. He did not care one bit about the slaves whatsoever. He made that perfectly clear. So
that's correct.
Yeah, I've read that in my history. Howard Zinn.
But they won't tell you that anymore because they want you to think it was over slaves, not over state sovereignty.
Right. Yep.
So anyway, what this is we're going back. This goes back to the original way things were set up in the Republic.
Good.
And that's a lot of people don't understand the difference between a democracy and a republic either. But anyway, that's another discussion.
And you're absolutely.
Go ahead. So what if you go back and look at the Constitution says in order to be a judge, you have to be a judge of the land, not of the sea. You are a constitutional judge, and you basically you become a judge because of the people.
Right.
The people make you the judge.
Right.
You can say, "Oh well, I took the oath," and anybody can. anybody can take an oath.
Right.
Now, to me, the oath is contract.
Right. Sorry about that.
Oh, wait a little.
It's the grandbaby. Yeah, but you're right. But you're right. You're right. The oath is a contract between basically your citizenship of the United States to protect that contract, the Constitution. But look how many officers are now coming out and asking people, what are you, a constitutionalist? And I go, when did that become such a bad thing? When did that become...
Exactly. I actually, okay, well, don't you believe in the Constitution?
Yeah. Why did you take an oath then if you're not a constitutionalist? So
yes.
You basically...
Every person in the military, every person who has signed an oath should be a constitutionalist.
Right. Absolutely. I hope that if all of this goes really south, and I've said this many, many times to everybody who listens to me, I hope that these military, National Guard, that they will throw down their weapons and say there is no way that I'm accepting any order that is going to go against my constitutional beliefs, my oath, or against the American people. So
that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But the propaganda machine and the brainwashing is in full gear.
It is,
and it will change. It will affect and it will change people. Look how it's changed people in the last 60 years.
Well, yeah, that's true. And there's a lot of things that have changed. Going back to what you were saying about the judge and about how the courts are pretty much owned by the attorneys, all you have to do is look at jury instructions. Look what that has done to the court system. Jury instructions written by lawyers about how the jury can deliberate on the information that they receive in a court trial. Isn't that insanity?
Right. That's indicative of a corporate jurisdiction system that is owned for profit by the Lawyers Guild.
Yes. Yep. You're absolutely right.
And see, they don't even like you coming in as pro se, and they won't even give you the rights of a pro se person because they want you represented through one of their members.
Right, of course. I know that. Yep.
And as soon as you get represented by another lawyer, you are automatically presumed as under their jurisdiction and incompetent, and that you are also a corporation.
Yep. And you've just taken on a trustee or a trustee to be your mouthpiece in all things. In all things.
That's right.
And when he sells you down the river and you end up in prison and you're like, okay, how did that work out? What the heck did I do to get here? Oh, geez.
Right. They people do not understand. They have been programmed in what? Government-controlled programming schools.
Yeah. Yeah.
They have, and look, it's atrocious as to what they're teaching kids in history and civics. They're not teaching the kids true civics. They're teaching a aberration or a lie that, okay, the Supreme Court is the true and actual court. No, it's not. A constitutional judge has more authority than any Supreme Court judge because they are not of the land jurisdiction or of the Constitution either.
Right. Well, a lot of
they are what? By law.
I do believe a lot of their latest rulings have really hit home with that. Really hit home that they're not for the Constitution whatsoever. And I can't believe people aren't seeing the writing on the wall. You know, they're waiting for the next Supreme Court ruling to come out and go, oh, man, we're screwed. Well, really?
Well, that's because they believe that the Supreme Court is the law of the land. It's not.